Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fleet's Random Ramblings 133, featuring Drach, which, as many long-time rambling viewers will know, Drach is not late, nor is he early. He arrives exactly when he means to. So, he's not here right now, but Drach will be here momentarily. As per usual, the man will arrive precisely when he... As many long-time rambling viewers will know... Yes, the man arrives precisely when he means to, and honestly, I can't fault him for that. At all. In any way that matters. As per usual, the man will arrive precisely when... Right. Okay. Should we bring out the old memes? I mean, if you want to bring out the old memes, Petch, you'll do it anyway. I can't really stop you. Can I? Not without utterly draconian measures, which I'm somewhat loath to actually indulge in. So we'll have to see how long it will take him to actually get there. I will just double tap the man, just in case he has forgotten. There we go. So, the topic for today is fictional ships, and why they're usually over or underwhelming. I'm sure a lot of you will have seen. Yes, Knight, the bot is on. I'll just turn it on again, just so that you're clear. Yeah. So the topic for today is fictional ships. Now, as I'm sure a lot of you are aware, fictional ships, especially when they're alternate history or fantasy, are usually either over or underbuilt. AKA, they're either significantly bigger than, or to be frank, they're just wrong. I mean, for example, Ironclad's sticking around far longer than they should. Or things that are too old being around instead of things that are too young. I mean, for example, if we look at the film Steam Boy, which I am very, very fond of, whilst the technology in it is a tiny little bit fantastical, the main problem is that, well, it's all a tiny bit too advanced. If the film was set in 1899, or some period around that, then it would be mostly fine. But it's not. It's set during the Great Exhibition in London. And, well, last time I checked, yes, but she wasn't an active service, Chandler Lord. Last time I checked, that's a a pre-dreadnought battleship, or at least something analogous to one. Not something that you'd find knocking around in the 1860s. Which is oh, Guy, would you do me well?
Hello.
You can stick around until Drach gets here. I'm trying to set up a new format for guests. When I have special guests on, it's just going to be me and them for a bit. And then, obviously, as they all depart, usually before the end of Ramblings, as they normally do, then, obviously, we'll go back to normal. But for now, I'm doing a preamble. So, basically, as you're all no doubt aware, fictional ships have a tendency to be wrong in one way or another. So I'll put it up. Like, for example, Steam Boy is supposed to take place in 1866. The Great Exhibition is in 1851, but it's moved forward to 1866 at the end of the American Civil War. And it takes place with these ships. I'll just show the YouTube audience. Wrong one. That's the right one. Yeah, those look very much more akin to pre-dreadnought battleships than any form of ironclad. In fact, they're almost... They're weird crosses between Royal Sovereigns and HMS Hood, the last ironclad turret ship of the Royal Navy. Which is just wrong. And yet, I mean, they're detailed, make no mistake. They're fairly accurate in what you would expect a ship to look like, but from the 1890s, not the 1860s. And they're also a little bit overgunned for pre-dreadnought battleships of the period. Very much more... Yeah, we're not talking... Okay, let me be clear here. We're not talking about spaceships here. Let me make that fundamentally clear. We are not talking spaceships. Just making that fundamentally quite clear here. We're not talking about spaceships. I mean, another good example would be, I mean, slightly less realistic, but would be the battleships from Howl's Moving Castle. Very much ships. I mean, they are supposed to be fantastical, and that's fair enough. But well, yes, it was never supposed to be about spaceships. Not really half the conversation, but it's... The whole reason is that there's a lot of focus on spaceships, but spaceships are usually confined by their own universal rules within the universe they take part in, rather than being based around history, as ships upon the ocean usually are. So... Therefore... I kind, and also we often get sidetracked into spaceships, and I kind of wanted to avoid that if I could. So for example, just to show people what I was on about, if I can quickly. If it'll let me, if I can figure out what the heck I'm doing with the things. Come on, Fleet, engage brain. If you would, that'd be grand. Fleet and his brain not engaging. Truly. Name me a better combination, I'll wait. But yeah, the battleships from Howl's Moving Castle are... I kind of like them. I know, like, everything in the film is overly dramatic, and I get it. But I kind of like them. I like how... they're this weird halfway house. And it's also kind of hinted that it's kind of how they're seen in the minds. Like, that sort of image of them is kind of not how they actually look. It's kind of how they're seen in the mind's eye of the people as they leave, all impressive. Because if you look at it coming back into harbour, when all the luster's gone off the shine, you'll notice the guns look a lot less impressive, a lot more real. The secondary battery looks a lot more realistically shaped and put together. It's the real version of the overblown ship that the people wanted to see when it left. Which is a great way to use visual storytelling, by the way. And it's something you can only really do with animation. Which is something that I do love. Just show this to the audience on YouTube. Yeah, if you compare the previous two images, if you need to pause and go back, if you look at the image of the ships as they left, this is more for the audience on YouTube than it is on our Discord, because they can see side by side. There is a great deal difference in the way they look. Comparatively. Which I'm honestly fine with. It's actually a... You have a... Sure. You can ask a question. And I mean, if anyone has any examples of fictional ships they think are overbuilt or underbuilt for the setting they're in, please put them in chat or put them in YouTube. What do you think the theming behind making them pre-Dreadish? Well, I think it makes sense given that this is the Howl's Moving Castle as the film is depicted is in the... It's a slightly steampunky, but also electropunk / magical punk 1900s. And it's quite clear that certain places have advanced far beyond others. So, for example, the aerial fleet is well ahead of the Navy. And I think that's probably accurate. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, Black Pearl and Flying Dutchman, like, absolutely are the, But yeah, I mean, Flying Dutchman and Black Pearl are very... Well, no. Flying Dutchman is... Flying Dutchman is... Because she's not a pirate ship. She's a Dutchman. A Dutch Indian man that's been converted into a metaphysical transport vessel for those who die upon the seas. So, ironically enough, I will give her a pass because she is kind of exactly what she's supposed to be. A little bit stylized, but she's supposed to be. But in terms of the Black Pearl, while she is a... Oh, what's the word? Oh, I forget. Oh, you know, Fleet's completely lost his marbles now. Come on, Fleet. Engage brain. Okay. What does the Fleet Dreadnought compared to World War II Cavalry? I suppose it depends on who you ask, really. Because each person will look at a ship differently. Bone meal. I mean... Given their wide variety and type of gun, they do look very impressive. And to an ordinary person who knows very little about battleships, and with their very vibrant color schemes, they do look very impressive. Compared to the dull gunmetal grey of... Well... But, yeah. That's probably why that was picked. Look at this carrier. What carrier is this to do? When you say this carrier... What do you mean? But yeah, so, as per usual, Drach is doing that thing of arriving fashionably late. But yeah, so that is the... I'll tell you what, while we're waiting for my esteemed colleague to show up, let's have some questions. Let's work through some of the... which link is that? I don't see a link, Sadu, from you. I only see... I do not see a link. I only see you and Knight talking. I don't see a link. Unfortunately. But anyway, while I'm waiting for my esteemed colleague to arrive. True enough, Chandlerlord. True enough. And that's fine. No problem at all. And I mean, I'm used to it. Even before little Drach arrived. Drach arrives when he means to and not a minute before. He's like a surprise tool that will help us later. You just don't know when the later's going to be. There it is. Oh, the memes, the classic memes, the classic memes. Oh, dearie me. Anyway, let's answer Timu's Patreon question while we're waiting. Ooh. 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 Corey 1901. What is that? I need a wine. Ooh. I need more. I need more. More. Ah, yes, there you are. I see. Yes, you see. Yeah. Yeah, because see, that's. I don't know why it wasn't. I don't know why it wasn't letting the. I just couldn't see the link. Anyway, so what is it? Because you can put the link in there. What is it? Anyway, so let's actually just answer Timu's question quickly. So, while we're waiting, and while I take some other questions related to fictional ships. Oh. Patreon, Timo asks, hello, fleet and the rest of the panel. The rest of the panel is just me. There are multiple fleets. Like, the fleet council will answer your question. Myself, the alternate version of myself, the alternate version of myself again, and the alternate version of himself. Alt history one for you. Denmark straight, but the luck is reversed. Hood survived and Bismarck takes the fatal magazine hit instead. Same 8 minutes, the fireball just changed the address. Hood comes home as a hero. Does that make her long overdue modernization more or less likely? A victorious ship is a lot harder to send away for 18 months rebuilding. Whilst that would be true, bear in mind, even if she doesn't take the fireball, Hood is still a little bit battered by Denmark Strait. And, of course, she's been overdue for an overhaul for a long time. The whole point was, when Prince of Wales was worked up, she was supposed to go in for an overhaul. Her engines are actually knackered. She is knackered. She needs it working over. It doesn't... And honestly, her victory means that if they want to keep her around and not run her into the ground, then yes, she basically needs an overhaul. Can't not be done. Hood goes in for the long modernization that everyone was expecting. Anyway, so Very quickly. Another light-hearted question while we're waiting for my esteemed colleague. And I'll show this to the YouTube audience as well. This will no doubt cause some controversy. But it'll be fine, I'm sure. Candlelord says, name every square that contains a battle cruiser. Okay. Once I put this up on the stream and the YouTube panel can have a look at it, I will start die. I will just die. Okay. Jokes aside, here we go. Okay, so from top left to bottom right, going in order. So top left, battle cruiser. Top middle, not a battle cruiser. Top right, definitely not a battle cruiser. Bottom left, battle cruiser. Middle, not a battle cruiser. Right, by technical definition of the navy that built her, technically a battle cruiser. Bottom left, that's renowned, that's a battle cruiser. Bottom middle, that's Congos, those are battle cruisers. Bottom right, that's the Scharnhorsts, they're battleships. Let the indignity of various members of the audience commence as they start arguing over what is and is not a battle cruiser. Ah, good. My colleague will rapidly be... C-Cube. I have a much better uniform than that, thank you very much. A significantly better uniform than that. Now, here's where the controversy starts. Vanguard, by technical Royal Navy definition, as originally constructed and designed, especially with the framing she has, is technically a fully armoured battlecruiser. However, she's reclassified a fast battleship as the whole distinction between what she is and what the RN has left, given the post-war paradigm shift in the way naval battles are fought, fundamentally doesn't matter. So, she's left... Basically, the world she was built for, where that designation mattered, no longer exists. So at that point, there was no point keeping her as a fully armoured battlecruiser. They may as well reclassify her as a fast battleship. So that's what she did, or they did. Hood could possibly fall under that terminology as well. The Congos possibly, as it depends on whether you believe the framing changes they did for the Congos during their reconstruction makes them more battleship than battlecruiser. I know Dr. Clark and Drach will sit and go back and forward for hours on this. I know this because it's something that they did repeatedly in Japan. Good times. Not that I mind. It's kind of fun watching those two go at it and just sitting off to the side going, yep, they're off again. Good times, good times. But yeah, so let's have a look. Any questions related to fictional ships? Ah! Here's my esteemed colleague now. Like I say, Drach is never early or late. He arrives exactly when he means to. Like a wizard, only better.
Yeah, sorry, I'm exactly half an hour late, but
see,
not a huge amount I could do.
There's no coincidence there. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I completely understand. Anyway, so we're on the topic of like I said, the topic of the discussion is basically fictional ships and why they're either technologically out of place, overbuilt, or underbuilt. Now, I've been listing a few different examples as we've gone on while I waited for you. So
Yeah.
the first one I brought up was the ships from the anime film Steam Boy, which is set in the 1866 at a great exhibition that's been pushed back to that period, but all the technology has been pulled forward from about 1902-ish.
Hmm.
Because I'll reply to myself to show you where we are in the Ramblings text. Those are not ships I expect to see the Royal Navy running around with in 1866. They look like a mashup of Royal Sovereign and Hood, as in with the old biscuit tin style turrets, but very much Royal Sovereign in every other way that matters. But definitely not ships from 1866.
Yeah.
I think you'll
Just
agree
sorry.
with that.
I'm just, yeah.
Do you have anything that you can think of off the top of your head from ships from fiction that you know? Not so much, definitely ships, not spaceships. Just making that clear. Any ships from fiction you can think of that are sort of not quite as they should be? I mean, one of the tropes I can think of.
I mean, there's the obvious one from was it Howl? Is it Howl's Moving Castle?
Oh yes, we've
That
already.
just you've covered that. They're like the French pre-dreadnoughts, like turned up to 11.
Although there is something interesting that I would like to point out to you about that. I've posted the sort of before and after images. And from what I can see, it's kind of implied that the image when they're going out to fight is kind of the public mind's eye of what they look like. And then if you look at them when they come back, battered and bruised, you kind of see the guns are the right size. And a lot of the extra guns are missing.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's how they actually looked. It's just the public saw them as bigger and more impressive than they actually were. Which I suppose is kind of a good way to do narrative storytelling. But even
yeah,
so,
I mean, it depends where. If we're, it depends what era are we kind of focusing on? Are we focusing mainly on the 19th century style stuff, or are we looking further before and after as well?
I think because given that fiction covers basically almost anything you can imagine, I mean, I see no reason to limit ourselves. I mean, the menagerie of sailing vessels that are completely either well ahead of where they should be or well behind where they should be is a great example. I mean, for God's sake, we could probably do a whole list of either settings that have stayed on with the galleon style Age of Sail ship far too long, or settings that have moved over to ships of the line when there's no real reason or drive for that movement to have taken place.
Yeah, well, I was thinking one of the things be Man in the High Castle, the TV series.
Oh, that is an excellent one to go for. Yeah, I think
because that's set in it's set in the atomic age, and sometime after the end of their version of World War II.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yet the fleets. I mean, much as I love the CGI and everything they did for them, the fleets of ships that you see in that series are basically like frozen in time late World War II ships. I mean, historically, by the time of that series setting, they should. Well, historically, most of those kinds of vessels had gone into storage. But the other ships, most of the ships, they should at least have been upgraded. If you see what I mean.
Yeah, I think I do actually, and I agree with you. I mean, the thing that I do find very annoying is the fact that the only ship there that's had any significant upgrades worth a damn is I think it's a Taiho, or possibly a Taiho successor, with the angle. I put the image in Rambling's text, but none of the none of the cruisers to any appreciable degree have
Hmm.
been upgraded. I mean, the only
Yeah,
in-universe
'cause
setting. Yeah, go on.
if you look at historically, because the Man in the High Castle is set in the early 1960s.
I think it's supposed to be set in parallel to what we would consider the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah, so early 60s. So if you look at what was being built in the early 1960s, like if say for the US, it's stuff like the Belknap class
Hmm.
cruiser,
Oh yeah,
which is very much and recognizably a modern, thin hulled twin arm missile launcher up forward, big radar mast array. Uh, the ships of the 60s and even the ships of the late 50s, they wouldn't really look out of place anything up until
you see the
at
rise
least I
of
would say,
the Aegis
at,
combatant.
yeah, they wouldn't look out of place up until like the mid 2000s when stealth ships start being brought in.
Yeah, the thing
And I
with
mean, even the late 50s, you got stuff like the Long Beach class with the giant cube on it, and so forth. But even ships like the Albanese or the Providences, which are modified from World War II designs, they still look very different to what the to what they looked like when they were in World War II. Whereas,
hmm,
yeah, the Man in the High Castle ships, they're just like, well, it's like technology has barely changed,
yeah, it
if
does.
at all.
I mean, on the one hand, you could. I mean, on the one hand, well, there are a few ways that I could see in universe to describe this. On the one hand, the fleet you send to pacify an unruly colony when
Hmm.
you're literally glaring daggers at the Kriegsmarine in the Indian Ocean probably wouldn't be your A team, given its role is suppression of colonials who don't have a navy. You would send
Hmm.
the C team, like the last of your old gun cruisers, one of the Yamatos that hasn't been meaningfully upgraded, and a carrier, one of your older angle deck conversions. That's one possibility, which does hold water to some meaningful degree. The other possibility is given the Axis, as we know, were behind the Allies electronically, that they just haven't gotten around to the same era of missile combatant as historically the Allied powers and the Soviet Navy would do.
Hmm.
Um, but again, I think it still doesn't. You are quite right. Even with both of those scenarios combined, you would expect any movement of ships like this to include at least 1 to 2 area air warfare missile armed combatants, and
Hmm.
there isn't a missile launch rail among them. Even
Yeah, and then
something.
I mean, yeah, I mean, what I was just thinking, like in yeah, I mean, I can understand to a certain degree that like the show producers may have wanted to just acquire some existing 3D models and basically just use them with fairly minimal modification because it saves money. But
Yeah,
yeah, you'd expect by that point that you'd like at least some of the secondary turrets or something would have been replaced with missile launchers, and there should be some radar, like decent radar arrays
I mean,
and so forth.
even that doesn't hold water because the Megamis have had their superstructure totally reworked and a helipad added aft. And I mean, that Taiho model
Mm.
has to be custom. It's an angled flight deck carrier.
Mm,
So even that, like, they can't hide behind that excuse either.
no. I mean, what one of my favorite when we're talking about fictional warships, I think probably one of my favorite um, examples probably has to be Captain Nemo's Nautilus
Oh, yes.
because there are so many interpretations of that. Yeah, going all the way back, um, there's some very basic interpretations that are very much in keeping with the pre-existing possible technology base of the time, going all the way through to the fantastical. I mean, obviously you've got the massive, almost 40k-ish one in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Ah, yes. The
Um,
would so
there's the
like Go
There's the Disney one, that's kind of like a gigantic harpoon.
on.
There's there's a couple of the MGM films of the 50s and 60s, which I think actually are probably the most steampunk looking of the various Nautilus variations. And then you've got I forget which series it's from, but there's like a copper looking one that basically looks like an Art
Oh,
Deco
that's the
aircraft.
original. That's the original, I believe. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Copper Art
Mm,
Deco looks kind of like an aircraft.
yeah,
Wait,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
wait, hang on. Kind of like an aircraft with wings at the back.
Uh, mm, no, I think I'm thinking of a different one. It looks more. It looks more like an Art Deco torpedo. If you imagine if you imagine a submarine built by the same people who designed that streamlined battleship, it kind of looks like that, but with little fins and a little tail plane at the back.
Oh, yeah, I know the one you mean. That's the Nautilus
Yeah.
from one of my favorite series of all time. That's the one. That's the one that
Mm,
is not a submarine at all, but it's
yeah.
being used as a submarine. Um,
Yeah. So I mean, there's loads of different examples of
yeah.
the Nautilus. And I always find it very interesting because it almost because there are so many examples now, it means that there's nothing forcing. If you want to do your own Nautilus for your own interpretation of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, there's no real reason for you to stick to any preconceived notion of what it looks like.
Hmm.
You can just go, oh yeah, well, yeah, everyone has their own idea what this looks like, and this is my idea.
I mean, given that we're talking about fictional ships that are supposed to be over or underbuilt, of the ones you've listed, I can't really think of any of the Nautiluses apart from maybe the one from the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the film, that I would actually say I can't imagine this being built in the 19th century by an absolute maverick inventor.
Yeah, I mean the design I can certainly see someone coming up with because there are certain aesthetic cues that come that because that like late 19th century period for ironclad building is so chaotic,
Mm-hmm.
but the scale of it is like it's just a little bit beyond. It's like you I could see someone building something like that but considerably smaller. But the way that they built it in the movie is just like it's like the size of a flipping super tanker.
It's like, yes, would sir like a giant moving wall, please, with no.
Yeah.
Essentially, to quote, what is metacentric height, and why do I need
Yeah.
it?
Mm. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking in terms because there's a lot of because that period there's a lot of books where they describe fictional ships, but they don't really illustrate them. In part because of the costs. Um, and then, of course, you've got the Thunder Child and the various iterations that people have done of her.
Mhm. Yeah, she's been
Um,
she's been everything from, I believe, an actual copy of Polyphemus, which I'd argue,
mm,
which you have argued, I think successfully, is actually underbuilt for what she does
yes,
in the book, all the way up to
yeah,
a full-on pre or even dreadnought battleship, which you argued again quite rightly probably is overbuilt for what she
yeah,
does. In fact, you could
yeah,
argue that that whole examination you did of Thunderchild was arguably what we're doing here, just on a more focused scale.
yeah, yeah. Um,
I
yeah,
mean,
and then of course you've got kind of what if you like retroactive stuff,
yeah,
where people are 20th and 21st century fiction and they're reaching back into the past to imagine ships. But I think that it's the wonderful thing about the late 19th century is that it's such a madcap period for ship design. You can come up with something that is arguably like only 1 point removed from complete insanity and has no real relation to anything in particular from before, but is still perfectly plausible in universe because it's probably more sane than at least half a dozen other designs that people genuinely actually tried.
yeah. Now, I do have an interesting. Are you? I mean, Ped just put two ships in that I think arguably fit into this whole paradigm quite well of whether or not they are over or underbuilt as a question.
Mm.
Now, Foxhole added naval vessels relatively recently, as in large scale
Mhm.
service combatants, and the battleships available to both sides are. They're. I mean, Ped just put them both in Ramblings text. I will put a reply to direct you to them. Um, they. One is a ship that I'd almost call a coastal defense Deutschland, and the other is a pre-dreadnought with delusions of grandeur. But this is supposed to be a world where only the most basic and robust technology is rebuildable through the cycle of nearly 400 years of constant industrial war. So I suppose, in a sense, the idea that what is a capital ship would degrade even if the nation's idea of it is kind of held intact. And you get these ships that have 6, 11-inch guns and a smattering of casemate, sorry, a smattering of turreted guns as your your capital ships essentially. But they're significantly smaller than what we would think of as anything other than maybe large coastal defense ships. I'm not sure how aware you are of Foxhole Drach at all.
Not particularly.
But yeah, basically, it's a society where two sides have basically been knocking seven bells out of each other for 400 years, with like 10-year breaks in between, and so
Okay.
and so technology is gradually degraded. Like they haven't deindustrialized, but what they're capable of actually standing up the industry from scratch to build in any particular war, after knocking seven bells out of each other, and is limited.
So it's in that. I guess at that point, it's almost a. It would be almost like the late 19th century, the late 19th century's ideas about how a modern naval war would have gone, but actually kind of come to life, if you like.
What do you mean by that?
So in the 19th century, in the late 19th century, like from about 1870 through to 1905 ish, there was this idea in in naval warfare that because technology was advancing so quickly, even nations like Britain and France and Russia, which were at the time had the biggest fleets, couldn't really build more than two or three ships of the latest and greatest type before what was the latest and greatest moved on.
Hmm.
So at any one point, you would have maybe half a dozen ships, even in the largest navies, that had the most modern armor, the most modern guns, etc., etc. And half a dozen ships doesn't a battle fleet make, especially when you have global commitments. So they had this concept that essentially any if there was a big naval war, the big fleets would have a small core of their most modern ships, which would then be backed up by like ships that were half a generation, and then a generation and a half behind. And collectively, those would make up a fleet that was of a respectable size. But you'd still be talking about ships at the lower end of that fleet, which really didn't stand much of a chance against ships at the upper end of that fleet, either because they couldn't hurt them or because the new ships really could hurt them badly.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be the fleets, those would be the fleets that everyone went in and initially fought their naval wars with. But then, as those ships either got sunk or damaged and had to go back into dry dock, then you'd have to pull from your reserves, from your second line, your true second line units. And then those would face off against each other and the remnants of the enemy's first line units. And then as you run out of those, or those get sent to dry dock, then you'd be pulling out your third line reserves and your fourth line reserve. And essentially, an ongoing naval war would very quickly see all your kind of first-rate assets and second-rate assets very quickly either destroyed or put into long-term repair. And the winner of the war would essentially be whoever could drag out enough ships out of reserve, no matter how old and otherwise obsolete, to actually have a fleet at all. If you see what I mean.
Yeah, of course.
Because then, if you're fighting a war at let's say at the end of the 1880s, sure, you're starting off with things like the Admiral class battleships and Victoria and Sans Pareil and all of this kind, and the French with with Hoche and things like this. But everyone was like, yeah, but there's so few of those that they'll be eliminated, and then you'll be down to things like Devastation and Thunderer, and then they'll get eliminated, and then you'll be down to your old masted broadside ironclads like Warrior and Monarch.
Yeah.
And it would just be a case of, well, yeah, Britain might be fighting, like 6 months in, you might be fighting an engagement where the British flagship is Agincourt or Northumberland or Black Prince. But the fact that they even have any kind of armored warship afloat at that point, when the French have run out, means that Britain wins. And I mean, yeah, sure. At that point, like if there's been one lucky survivor from like the mid 1880s design phase, it's going to be an absolute monster. But there is only ever one of it, so
and torpedoes
you still
exist at that point. You only got to get lucky once.
Exactly. And then kind of the war as it stands, if the war still continues at that point, is mostly going to be fought by cheap, mass-produced ships, which basically mean generally going to be small ironclads, probably either broadside or with a couple of pivot guns, something like that. Which is essentially, you're in an environment where, technologically speaking, you can build late era ironclad early pre-dreadnoughts, but because you've attrited away the last 30 years of fleet build-up, you're basically throwing out kind of miniature warriors with a few modern 6 or 8 inch guns slapped on them, very almost Mad Max style, because that's the thing you can quickly produce and throw out there in months, as opposed to the years that it takes you to build a modern capital ship. It kind of sounds like that sounds a bit like what you're describing to a certain degree.
Makes sense. Yeah. We do have a question from YouTube, which I think has brought up a ship that is fictional, and I think actually brings us back to what we were discussing at the beginning of Man in the High Castle. Thoughts on the USS Sentinel from Thunderbirds? That's the large, fast missile cruiser / battle cruiser. Now, I actually think Now, I actually think that, as with a lot of Jerry Anderson things, given the period Thunderbirds was actually created in, to be honest with you, it's honestly one of the most aggressively forward-thinking designs for a capital ship in the period that I can think of. Basically foreseeing an idea where the missile and the aircraft are what decides a ship's survival, and while you might retain guns for limited self-defense, what a battleship is going to be is not going to be defined by those guns. Like, she carries 4.5-inch guns, according to the Haynes manual. Although they might probably be more accurate to say 6-inch guns, given their size.
Yeah, I mean, the weird thing is that the Sentinel, to me, it's almost like it looks a little bit like some of the early concept, like visually speaking, it looks a little bit like some of the early concepts for an Arsenal ship. But then, of course, it's not carrying massive numbers of missiles. It's instead, it's got a gun, but it has got some missiles in the middle. But it's primarily a carrier. But with the with these like essentially vertical takeoff and landing fighters, so it's not got a traditional flight deck.
Hmm.
So it's kind of, yeah. I think the best way to describe the Sentinel is it seems to me to be kind of a it's a 19 it's an early to mid Cold War concept of a futuristic battle carrier.
Yeah,
That makes any sense
and I mean,
because it's got,
yeah,
or if you want to throw back to the like 1930s World War II, a cruiser carrier, because it's got this little gun. It's got some of the designs. It's got this little gun turret up front,
hmm
um, but it's primarily got these launch bays and launch ramps for fighters, almost Battlestar like. But then it's also got a defensive missile battery further aft. But it is primarily about fighters. So I mean, in some ways, you could almost look at it a bit like I think, is it the Kiev class, the Russian ones?
kind of, yeah,
Yeah, it's just without it's almost like a futuristic Kiev, but without the fixed flight deck outside because it's doing the whole carrier bit mostly from inside and relying on VTOL.
Now, I mean, there is an interesting thought here. Given that Thunderbirds is mid 60s, that
Mm,
that's pre the rise of, in the West at least, ships carrying anti-shipping missiles. Like Harpoon is decades away.
mm,
If a Western warship wants to blap something with missiles, it has to, fire its anti-air beam riders towards something it's pointed the beam at on the ground. Which I think kind of explains why Sentinel is the way she is. Like, if Thunderbirds had been maybe a decade later, she might have had bank upon bank of like box launchers or concealed box launchers for, you know, Western
mm.
Western style anti-ship missiles. But because it's this time capsule of the mid 60s, it kind of makes the striking power of any ship in the mid 60s for the Western navies to reach out and touch something beyond gun range or direct line of sight missile range is the aircraft. So any future battleship would need aircraft, which
Mm.
then kind of brings it. But again, I don't think she's overbuilt in any real way. I think for the
No.
world that Thunderbirds exists in, she's not overbuilt.
Yeah,
Um,
well, this is the thing with a lot of, I mean, with the best one in the world. I mean, most of these fictional settings are they offer you a window or a snapshot into the world,
yeah,
um, but they obviously aren't really concerned with building out the full backstory of what's going on, um, which is, I mean, you can understand why because people are interested in telling the story that they want to tell.
hmm
Whereas obviously for us naval nerds, you're like, no, tell us all about the full background.
give us the things.
Um, but as a result, a lot of the time, you don't really get to see where these things stand within the world as a whole. Because for something like, say, the Sentinel, it could be the modern capital ship of that era. It could be a one-off, something that's a bit special. It could be the equivalent of a second line ship, like a light carrier or a cruiser carrier, as conceived of in the 30s, or it could be the generic ship
Yeah,
of the period. It could be like the Arleigh Burke of the day. We don't know really within the realm of that universe where it sits there.
you only get that after the fact. And while yes, that is
Mm,
published by people with Jerry Anderson's consent, how much
yeah.
influence has he actually had on it? Was that his original vision? Which is the thing.
Mm,
Um, now, my good friend Dragon has posted something that I would like to have a look at because it does. It's a rare example of, I think, you know how you mentioned not building out a world? Like, this is one of those rare cases where where someone sets multiple things in a universe, they do actually go to some effort to do that. And so you do get a sort of building out of the world. And these sort of coastal defense ships that I'm going to put here again, they're very much a unique facet of this world, but they very much show the differences between this world and the one that we know. For example, there's no aircraft, well, beyond rigid airships. So ships in this world don't need to carry anti-aircraft guns. This is a navy that it has a small coastline to defend, but not much in the way of centralized fire control, since computers aren't really a thing. Even basic mechanical computers aren't really a thing. So you're left with the idea of hitting something very hard with as big a gun as you can carry. So if you want to fire, since your ship has to be narrow to reach, since these ships have what I could only describe as a mix between... The best way to describe the fuel source in this world is a mix of a cross between the power output of a nuclear reactor that needs radiators and produces no emissions and a diesel engine, in terms of how quickly you can ramp that power up.
Who am I looking at? I'm looking at Corey's stuff.
No, up further, the one above it. That's the ship I'm talking about.
Petch?
No, the one I posted. The one that Dragon... I've reposted it from where Dragon put it right down at the bottom.
Oh, the Dandarius.
Yeah, well, Dandarius is one of them, but the other one is the Galleon warship. So, the Galleon warship has a... It's a coastal defense ship, but it's a coastal defense ship in a world where it does seem... Well, torpedoes... Well, the possibly aesthetic, but torpedoes do seem to exist since it carries torpedo nets. Which is a nice touch. But again, so because it has a narrow hull and the equivalent of slapping a nuclear reactor that doesn't need shielding and functions like a diesel engine, this thing nips around at 35 knots flat out.
I would not like to be on the bow of that thing.
Probably not, but then again, it's supposed to be a coast defense ship that's going to... We're going to go over there and slap that guy. We're going to get there at speed.
Yeah, I mean, still, if you're going to go at 35 knots, you want a slightly better bow shape than that.
Yeah, but it is like... I like when designers actually think about the universe they've created and think what... Because there's no aircraft, so they've not slapped pointless anti-aircraft guns on it.
Yeah, I mean, as far as a fictionally designed warship goes, if someone just showed me that picture and said that's a coast defense ship, I'd be like, yeah, that's actually fairly well thought out. If they told me it goes at 35 knots, I'd say, yeah, you need to completely redesign the bow, but but outside of that, it's actually a pretty good design.
The Dandarius,
the other one,
the Dandarius is she's an old pre-dreadnought or an old battleship that's been heavily reworked before being given to one of the so basically
I'm liking most of the design up to the bow gun.
The 600mm bow gun.
Yeah, it's just like I'm looking at that and going,
that's supposed to be a
one.
turret.
That's a massive weight up front. That's either going to be completely unprotected, or if you put a bunch of protection on it, you have such a colossal weight up front. You're basically going to spend your entire time looking like you're sinking by the bow, which I'm pretty sure is not the intended effect.
I mean, to be fair, it does look like her engines and boilers are mounted aft, along with the majority of her armor.
Yeah, but the center of gravity and the thinness of the bow, it's not. I mean, I can understand the idea of wanting to have essentially a fixed spinal mount gun, but if I was gonna do that concept in a way that actually worked thanks to physics, I would probably have the thing mounted where the little twin turret forward of the bridge is.
Yeah, little. That's a 400mm gun turret.
Yeah, well, everything is relative.
Although this thing does apparently weigh 43,000 tons.
But yeah, I mean,
big. But again, it does it kind of shows that again, as with the previous ship's a coast defense ship, so it's slightly smaller. But again, it shows that this world is kind of stuck in that last gasp of the pre-dreadnought.
Yeah,
kind of where you basically you can't do long range fire, so your best bet is to close in and hit the other guy really, really, really hard, and hope that he doesn't get back up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's I say like of the two, the Galleon one is a bit better thought out. I mean, this one's not terribly thought out as a concept. It's just that big gun up front is too far up front.
I think
It needs to be put back.
Yeah, I think if you removed the forward gun as this is an older battleship given to a rebel force to enable them to fight the superior navy of the nation they've rebelled from, that absolutely works. Like, it's an older ship, yes, but it's got two twin massive guns that just
To be perfectly honest, if you took out that weird little superstructure and what looks like a box container and everything that's between the forward turret and the forward big gun, if you took all of that out and just move the big gun aft, so maybe it's sat with the twin turret super firing over it.
Yeah.
Even if you moved it back that far, you might still have some trim issues, but you might be able to get away with it at that point. It's just I understand the aesthetics of having it up in the bow, but just from a warship perspective, it's not going to work.
I mean, just basically do what the Galleon warship does, but on a bigger scale.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the two images immediately below that Petch posted,
that's the frigate and destroyer of the factions in Foxhole.
So both of those also have big gun turrets fairly close up to their bows, or sterns in the case of the first one as well. But that they're a bit more plausible because they have these much the guns aren't quite as massive as that ridiculous one relative to the ship, but also they have quite full bows and sterns.
Yeah.
So to me that I'm looking at going, okay, so these ships aren't particularly fast, but they have a huge amount of buoyancy, and that explains why they can afford to have these guns fore and aft. Whereas the this other previous vessel, the Dandarius, it's like it's clearly shaped for some degree of speed.
I wouldn't like to be going on that thing when it's doing its full speed of 23.5 knots. That would just be a bad time for all concerned. I think she'd do a good impression of Bellerophon's bow wave.
Yeah.
But yeah, you mentioned the ship below, and it's actually even better than that. The frigate, which is the first one, the one with the two guns forward, those are actually significantly smaller weapons than the two guns in turrets aft. So again, the balance is even more maintained to try and keep the ship balanced.
And actually, it does have a relatively decent kind of historical throwback, because although we're talking about coast defense ships of some of the very smaller navies of the late 19th century, this concept of having a couple of high velocity, smaller caliber guns up front in separate turrets with some heavier stuff aft does actually make an appearance in some 19th century ship designs. I mean, essentially that what they're looking at. I mean, admittedly, it's mostly coastal defense ships, as I said, but what they're looking at in those concepts is essentially that if the coast defense ship is pursuing someone, then you want longer range, high velocity, relatively rapid fire, which is what these little bow guns would allow you to do.
Yeah.
And then if you need to use your big, heavy, ship killers, the chances are you're in a knockdown, drag out fight, at which point you're probably going to be broadside on. So the fact that the turrets are amidships or aft doesn't make too much odds, because they're going to be firing broadside anyway.
And I mean, you can see the two different, like the ones at the top with the wardens, like kind of an imperial household faction. They're they're rough equivalents, but you can see the very clear sort of, one is very much what we would consider to be a World War II aesthetic. One is very much what we consider sort of not quite World War One, but sort of a weird halfway house between late 19th and early 20th century design principles.
Yeah, the sort of the World War II era-ish one. It reminds me either of the Flores class gunboats of the Dutch, or of actually the LCSLs.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
The basic American World War II little gunboats.
Yeah, the landing craft supports. Yeah.
It's like that has the lower one has very definite vibes of that. Although actually, compared to an LCSL, it's actually slightly underarmed. Because having been on board the last surviving LCSL, it's the only ship I've been on where it's so covered in guns. You actually, if you're on the main deck, you actually have to maneuver yourself sideways just to make your way around the ship because there are so many guns and they're so close together.
We have overrun a little bit over the time you said you could be here for, but I would
Yeah,
like
I do
to.
need to go because I'm a bit tired.
Yes. Yes. I'll not keep. I mean, if you have time for one more question, one more
Sure,
examination, I'd appreciate it. But obviously, if not, I understand.
Mm.
It's
Sure,
up to
let's
you.
go with one more.
Okay, so from Night on YouTube, because that evens us out between YouTube and Discord, makes it nice and even. Thoughts on the various experimental submarines from Ace Combat, so the Hrim Fantasy class submarines and the Aelicorn class. So, with me, I'll get some images. Basically, the first two are they are submarines um with ability to carry aircraft, but the thing with them is that they're very much ballistic missile carriers and other things first and foremost than they are any sort of like they're there like they have these aircraft as a basic self-defense capability if they are forced to breach given the size
Hmm.
of them, like basically because it's F-35s they carry and they have to do a straight vertical launch, like there's no flight deck. It's just right. It's like, oh, good lord, lads, put a pair of AMRAAMs under the wings, go out the hatch, go, 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 go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
I mean,
Pyro,
I'll give them credit points for the fact they've designed a submarine that actually looks vaguely like a submarine. Um,
yeah,
I mean, obviously it's monstrously large, but you know, from a purely from an underwater hydrodynamics perspective, it's not terrible. And the way they've got the aft set up, you can almost see that you could almost imagine that they're using like the Typhoon class is actually a whole series of different pressure holes in a wrapper.
yeah.
You can kind of see that maybe there's a central pressure hull or series of pressure holes running around down the main length of the ship, and then aft there's maybe two smaller pressure holes, one either side, and then maybe a small command pressure hull above it.
I mean, yeah, you can see. In fact, you can almost see the command pressure hull, given that you can just about, if you look, like that raised ridge, you can sort of see the sort
Yeah,
of Russian-style bridge windows
yeah.
that would probably
Now
be
that one,
pressurized.
the missile launch tubes obviously would be embedded in the pressure hull the way they are on conventional ballistic subs
Probably
these days.
that forward pressure hull, if you look, has the you can see the doors for the
Mm,
aircraft hangar and the
yeah.
missile tubes.
Yeah, I think where you've got that kind of slightly lighter band between the launch hatch and the missiles, I think that would probably be a divider between the two pressure hulls because it would make sense to have your ballistic missile capability separate from your aircraft launch capability. Because if anything breaches that the aircraft launch
Yeah,
section,
you've got
that's
problems,
a huge amount of flooding. But with a ship this size,
especially with
you
all the
might
weight
just
concentrated aft. So that
yeah,
if
you
that
might just get away with it if that's a separate hull that you can close off. Whereas if it's a continuous pressure hull that includes the hangar and the missile tubes, like one breach anywhere forward of the bridge and you're done.
yeah,
Um,
so
and
on the
then you've got this other one that
that's
someone
that's Aelicorn, and she comes
yeah.
with a whole. She comes with a, so that first shot. Well, yes, flight deck on a submarine. Arg. Yeah,
Um,
that ain't the worst of it.
no, I
Um,
mean, but this I had a quick look up at the size stats. It's like for the size of this sub, it's not the worst thing because again, it's you can see quite clearly see that you're probably looking at three pressure hulls here. You've got a long central pressure hull or series of, and then you've got these two engine pods which are only loosely connected to the rest of the sub, and then the bridge above. So, I mean, at that point, you've got the room for a flight deck on the casing. You might as well make use of it if you're going to do this whole submersible aircraft carrier thing.
that's not the
It's
worst.
not particularly efficient because you're looking at a ship that's again, if I'm reading the size, if I'm reading the length right, you're looking at a ship that's quite considerably longer than a modern nuclear carrier. But as you can see from I think those are F-16s, maybe.
Rafales.
Or Rafales. Okay,
Rafales.
but yeah, so you can see from the Rafales on the deck that it's not a particularly big flight deck. It's got length, but it's got no breadth to it.
She's only carrying
So
30 aircraft as well, apparently.
yeah, so in terms of size versus aircraft capacity, it is massively inefficient compared to a surface carrier. But obviously, it has the advantage of it can disappear under the water.
The only problem is that, the second image I posted, her means of delivering her nuclear warheads.
Who the heck is that?
The
Is that a railgun?
The railgun that rises out of the flight deck.
I mean, that's one way of doing it.
And can only be fired while surfaced. And the various other missiles and other things. So those pods on the side, the ones you mentioned that are loosely connected, they open like petals to reveal weapons inside for self-defense when surfaced. Which kind of makes sense, but I'm all like, please stop.
At that point, it's not so much a submarine. It's more of a submersible warship. At that stage,
I believe she's called a submersible underwater ballistic missile launch platform and missile cruiser rather than a submarine, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it is Ace Combat. Things are overbuilt for a reason. But I mean, in a world where you have people running around with aircraft that are a little bit crazy, I suppose she's not overbuilt. I mean, I think the first one, the Strimfaxi, I think that's as a super sub, I like it. I think, and you kind of were hinting that you were not unfond of the design.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you. Thank you for staying for one last question, Drach. But I have kept you longer than I promised I would. So I will let you go now. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, no worries. And yeah, talk to you again at another time.
Take care, Drach. I'll see you later at some point.
Yeah, then. Bye.
Goodbye. Right. Thank you, everyone, for being patient with me and Drach as we kind of went on a little bit of a ramble there every now and then. But yes, that was myself and Drach examining some of the ships from various things and whether or not they were realistic, overbuilt, or underbuilt. And I thank you all for putting up with us and our ramblings on ramblings. Now that we have finished, I will now invite the various normal members of the panel back, and we will attempt to finish the normal ramblings as best we can in the next 45 minutes. Oh, and of course, Guy, you can come up now. But yes, thank you everyone for being as patient as you have been. Much appreciated. Yeah, the PS2 graphics don't help, but well, it was built for the PS2, so yeah. And it's also the first only real good shot I've ever seen of Simfaxi close up that has enabled that examination. I'm surprised that actually went fairly well. I think that whole test was a success. Of having special guests on solo seemed to work quite well. Hello, Foxo. Have you had a good day? So, Dutchman, get up here. Oh, and Dragon's here.
It's in the water face down, Flame.
No, I don't want to. I don't.
You do not recognize the bodies in the water.
I don't recognize them. I choose not to. Also, Dragon, I got Drach to talk about the Valkyria Chronicles ships. He actually liked the Galleon warship. Although he said quote, I wouldn't like to stand on the bow when it's doing 35 knots.
No, neither would I.
And he liked Dandarus, except for the fact that big gun forward was kind of unnecessary. The ship would have worked as a concept without the big gun, or move it down a deck and back a bit.
And the fact that it's 43,000 bloody tons.
Yeah, that as well. then again, this is and the thing is, the ships have torpedo nets, but no torpedoes, and we don't see anyone ever use torpedoes, which is a bit weird. But yeah, so we're gonna try. We'll try and work through. We'll try and work through some questions if we can from YouTube and Discord now. This is actually quite good. You lads are here, and
Lads?
I was waiting for that one.
Lads?
And the lady present. Knight6831 asks, thoughts on the Orichi from the Azur Lane video game series?
Do you mean the... Wait. Did you...
Spelt
Say that again.
Spelt O-R-O-Chi. Orochi.
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 No, it's pronounced Orochi in the anime.
I mean, yeah, well, it should be, because where's the... Okay, so is this a... oh, wow,
fascinating.
Oh wow, it's an actual warship that's not a ship girl. Wow. Whoa! What the flippity whoa!
Come on.
That is that's big. That's big. That's
That's what he said at the game bar.
Wait, hey, nobody rip on me but me. Oh, and Foxer, because, well, she's good at it, and if she does it, then no one else gets to do it. Whee.
For the record, that ship's over 685 meters long.
What is hydrodynamics, and where do I get some? Yeah, what are hydrodynamics, and where do I get some?
Its hydrodynamics is actually quite hydrodynamic under the water line.
Yeah, I know. It's more just it's.
But then again, when you have multi-shot intercontinental nuclear missiles.
Yeah, and also you've got the whole this is bullshitty and magic McMuffin bits and bobs. So yeah, are these the guys that everyone's fighting? Like, is this the thing?
This is a ship created by the Sirens. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what the ship.
So it's powered by alien bullshittery.
Yeah, that's what the.
No.
Okay, we can argue if the Sirens are alien bullshittery, Drach.
No, that's not what I'm meaning. You're right there, but that's not what I was going to argue about.
Go on.
It's powered by a wisdom cube.
Is that like a Rubik's cube that solved itself?
No, it's...
Dragon, I'm sending you to Thetford.
It's like the soul and core which allows you to create a ship girl that, works off humanity's memories of it. In particular, it's powered by a black wisdom cube. That was a lot of mental torture they put various ship girls through to create that.
I'm gonna put that. Ed, I know you got that, but I'm sending him to Thetford Forest. Sticks tongue out.
Don't say that's that much different than the North, honestly, with everything you say about it.
There is Thetford's a royal forest. There is no signal.
And
a bunch of people keep getting murdered in there.
Unlike you, I can read a book.
And we keep finding bodies from murders 7 to 8 years ago. When they put down a tree and it's brought a body with it.
You're talking to someone who does not live that far from the Yorkshire Moors.
Yeah, Thetford's also an army training ground.
This is barely even noticeable.
Fine, Dragon, I'm taking it to the Juice-Free Moors. Happy?
Anyway,
God, you said you're gonna get that reference.
I got it, but still. Really?
Already you'll remember Madeleine McCann.
Yes.
Okay, thank God I'm not the only one.
I mean...
A lot of people here probably know it.
I mean, to be fair,
Anyway, do we want to move on? Because I think Fleet's constipated.
The fleet is fried.
Yes, the fried fleet. Also,
Yeah, he saw another man's feet and he went hard. It got harder him to talk.
Stop it. Anyway, so we'll have one more YouTube question from Knight, and then we'll take some questions from Discord if people want to ask them about ships that are. Also, yes, Corey, I am aware of Dorf. I cannot wait for Dorf. Like, I am so looking forward to a RTS that has land, sea, and air units, 3 different factions, and like Factorio style. I'm so excited for Dorf.
The hell is Dorf?
It's an RTS that's being developed. It's great.
Expand.
I've put a link.
No, do not tell Fleet to expand.
I do enough of that at work. Anyway, expending.
We do not
resources.
need fleet inflation.
Anyway, 96831 asks, dumbest ships from World of Warships Global. I'm not aware of World of Warships Global. What is World of Warships Global?
He's using that for so that you don't freak out about the Leicester.
Yeah. World of Warships Global is the normal PC one.
Oh,
You then have World of Warships Blitz.
then why not just say
And-
World of Warships? That's fine. I just don't like hearing about Leicester.
Yeah, because Global excludes Leicester.
Because the amount of times you freak out at him.
Wait, is Global Leicester's thing?
Global used to Leicester used to be part of Global. They got split off in 2022.
Like I
The
said,
invasion of
like,
Ukraine.
okay, that's fine. You could you can talk about World of Warships. That's fine. You just don't.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like you just specifically talk about Leicester though. I was like,
Excluding Leicester. Okay, Dragon, remind me, which is the Soyuz that's too heavy to float?
Oh, Kremlin. And technically, it's not
Kremlin.
Sovietsky Soyuz, it's the upgraded variant. It's the what's called design that comes as a follow-on.
Oh, Project 24, I think. I think that's
Then
right.
also got the Soviet cruiser that can't float either. What's called? And it's Riga, Nevsky, and Petropavlovsk all can't float.
Yeah.
Any of those? Fucking Mecklenburg. And Zetnan up of the German battle cruisers.
Zeton's actually based on a real thing.
Yeah, hence why I said Zeton and up, because I just despise Zeton. Because isn't that the first one that gets double secondaries?
Possibly.
I remember one of them, the fact they have twin secondaries was a translation mistake.
That's Grafstep.
That's
No,
not Zeppelin.
Grafstep. It's more complicated than that because no, the ones on the battle cruisers are not based on a translation error. They're all based on the fact that Graf Zeppelin used the twins.
Which is fucking dumb. St. Vincent and Duncan. I despise on principle.
You just have an absolute hatred against them. It's almost as bad as your hatred against remasters.
Let's not open that can of worms again.
Grumble, grumble, grumble.
Because you know I'm right.
I know you're wrong, but anyway.
Anyway, so let's see. Have we got any questions from? Any questions from Discord at all? No.
Honestly, if I had to put a crown on the worst of them,
Oh, here we go. Channel Lord. This is fine.
it would have to be Max Immolen.
No, I wouldn't say Mac Dingleman's
The tier 10 carrier.
I would say it's the best, personally.
Because it's a fake carrier on a ship that's a semi-fake design.
What?
That's one that's based off H44, isn't it?
No.
I was on a H39.
H39, which we know actually quite solid information on.
Yes, but it's too long to be H39 from the video I saw. So
But-
it's not H39.
It is H39. It's based on the same hull.
Okay, but it's just a fucking shit. What the fuck were they thinking with that thing?
They probably
The idea of converting a battleship hull that was incomplete over to a carrier because they thought it would be theoretically quicker to convert it. It's actually got a lot of sense behind it. Even if I disagree with the sense, I can see the sense. Dumbest personally to me, probably Admiral Latigue, a French hybrid French hybrid supercruiser, which is literally the Germans took one of our ships and then modified it into an Atlantic kreuzer that then we claim after the war now have we've replaced its main guns with French 330s and have stuck French planes on the back of the flight deck. And it's a cruiser. And it's meant for fighting other ships, unlike the Jean Bart proposal where it's not meant for fighting ships. Gah!
It is one of those things.
Because normally I will defend hybrid ships to some degree, but that one, not a chance in hell.
But yeah, the worst one is fucking Duncan and St. Vincent.
No, they're not.
Because they're worse, because they're wasted opportunities. And from a gameplay perspective, they're the worst.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you should mention that.
What are you going to come in a spirited defense?
The Channel Lord asks opinions of this: the upcoming Tier 9 Spanish premium battleship Triunfante, which is a
G3.
Yeah, like I have no issue, like with her, given what she's supposed to be and when she is supposed to be. Given the way she's refitted, it's clearly a late 30s look. Given that by the time of her sail to Spain, she is probably a second or third line combatant, given what the various great powers will be running around with. And given that in order to even stand a chance against those first line combatants, you need something like her, then I consider it, honestly, realistic that in a hypothetical world where there is no Washington, and she is at this point a unneeded third line combatant in the Royal Navy, that instead of scrapping her, they would sell her to Spain. Because she's definitely beyond Spain's capability to build, but they could buy some sort of floating dry dock or commission a dry dock to repair her. Anyone have anything else to say?
Yeah, but I think she's a full-on fantasy ship.
Oh god, oh no, she is absolutely like
Yeah, no, which means that from a game design perspective, she has to fit in the game and the cohesiveness of the line of the tech tree, which she's not a part of a tech tree, so she's fine as she is as long as she's not stat-wise overpowered.
She's a premium, so yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't have the same issue the British G3 has. That's tech tree. Where she breaks the cohesion of the entire fucking line.
Ah. Saduni asks, what would happen if instead of Thunderchild in temporary dreadnought form, what if the dreadnought race occurred early in that time and the Martians had been confronted with a dreadnought? Well, I question what British admiral is putting a dreadnought in his close guard ship. Given the area of sea that this is supposed to take place in, that's just a bad move all round. It's fairly shallow, confined waters, which a dreadnought can't really maneuver in. A small light cruiser would probably be better. Or if you want to have something bigger, a last generation armored cruiser would probably be better. But if you must have a dreadnought, then the best thing you can do is have spotters ashore and be plastering the Martians as they advance. Because if they get into visual range of that dreadnought, she's dead. She's dead, dead, dead. But because it's a dreadnought, and because it has an increased range of elevation and bigger guns than the ships that came before, she can basically do the whole, I'm going to defeat you by doing the one thing you can't do, Mars. I'm going to lob my shells on a lovely ballistic arc from beyond visual range. Take that, direct fire energy weapons. And as we've seen from the Martians, it only takes one hit to smash the machines to matchwood, and that's from a significantly smaller gun. And as we've seen, the Martian machines can also stumble. Like, imagine if a shell bursts near the foot of one of the machines and it topples over, losing one of its legs, or one of its legs goes into a hole at a bad angle and just the machine topples that way. If the ship can be lucky and the spotters are very good at their jobs, then the Martians could be convinced to withdraw. But if they get into visual range, it's a bad time. Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
No.
It's all the world. I don't know shit.
It's amusing, especially considering if you then debate what type of dreadnought it is. You're gonna have fun times.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a lot of fun times. Save it an Iron Duke or something. Oh.
I mean, at that point, the Martians may actually be convinced to retire because of the fact that they're being continually shelled and they're not even within sight of the coast yet. If she's acting as a close-in Coast Guard ship.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something more like Dreadnought, they might get within visual range, at which point she might have problems.
Honestly, the amusing one would be something like Agincourt.
Oh, Agincourt would... Ironically enough, Agincourt would actually... No, Agincourt would actually be the best ship for the job.
Mm-hmm.
Because given her length, the effect of any individual heat ray would be minimalized. I mean, as we see from Thunderchild, yes, she takes a heat ray to the guts, but it doesn't kill her. They have to put another heat ray into her forward magazines to kill her. And if you imagine Agincourt, they put one heat ray that touches off her forward magazines. Yeah, that's going to wreck the forward magazines of Agincourt. But the rear 3 guns turrets might still be banging away, even as the ship settles and starts to sink. And that might be enough to deliver the final killing blow. And at that point, her lack of armor fundamentally doesn't matter, because you can show up as a monolithic block of iron. It's not going to matter. The Martians are going to go, ooh, I'm going to slice right through you, buddy boy. Meet the laser scalpel. Swoosh.
I was under the impression that the Martians could knew where they could see the heat of the engines. Or is that just a radio play?
No, they thought, oh, okay, big thing, aim center mass, and pull trigger. It's not hint and for any ironclad warship of the period, save a few, center mass is usually where the boilers and the engine rooms are. It's why the first shot doesn't kill her. Like, it ruins her guts, but she's not really sinking or slowing meaningfully on her charge. It's why they put a second heat ray into a different spot, because the first one didn't kill her.
Take your word for it, because I am not familiar with this franchise.
I am very, very familiar. I am aggressively familiar.
I just always find it kind of boring.
Fair enough.
I enjoyed the radio play, but the actual book is nothing like the radio play.
No, it's not.
And the movies are not like the radio play.
Oh, no, they're not.
Well, to be fair, I wouldn't even go off the movies. The one I would probably actually go off is unironically, the musical.
Peak War of the Worlds. Peak.
Like the radio play is good, but what's it called? The musical, unironically, is like just one of the best interpretations of it.
It's basically just Keynote. It's basically a Keynote's version of the book put to music with excellent narration by either Richard Burton or depending on the version, Richard Burton or Liam Neeson.
Okay. Not saying I'm super familiar, but
Understandable. It's different people have different things that they know.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Right.
Because I might not be a fan of War of the Worlds, but I will live, fight, and die in the name of the glory of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the radio play. There has never been a better radio series or TV series or movie or bit of audible media since. But yes, do we want next question?
Yeah, which is nice that they want us at Suez, who came up with the nuclear option to destroy the US economy by Europe withdrawing all the gold and stopping debt repayments. I have no idea.
Now, are you getting the American threat and the European threat confused? Because it was the Americans who threatened to crash the Europeans' economy by crashing the franc and the sterling, and what the Italian currency is called in this period. And that's by calling dissolving debt.
Yep.
Because never forget, debt is leverage.
Always has been.
This is why modern countries being in so much debt is such a big problem.
To be fair, though, at that point, it's more... They don't know who they're in debt to at this point. Well, everybody and nobody at the same time. Government bonds can be bought up by anybody.
Yeah, and that's kind of the issue, Lee.
But they also can't. But they also can't be used as leverage in the same way that large national debt used to be usable as leverage. because it's so diffused now, you can't really threaten national economies in the same way you used to be able to.
You still, but you can though,
It,
and that's because you can, because all the debt's intertwined.
oh shit! Whoops! I forgot that was still on the screen. Whoops!
If you start pulling strings out and start a currency spiral, even if it's a small one, the stock market does its thing. And get the issue of high-speed traders go burr.
Yeah. Fair enough. Right. Okay. With that, I'm going to end it in...
I like gold.
I'm going to end it here because most of the questions are related to more things to do with last week's questions. And that was not really the topic of discussion that we were here to discuss. I wanted to do a few questions afterwards because, well, I like talking to Foxo and Dragon, and I like having them here. So I wanted to do a few questions with them because I like having them here. But yes, so thank you everyone for coming. Hope you all enjoyed Drach being here for the. Are you all right, Foxo?
Yeah, I am fine.
Hope you all enjoyed Drach being here for 45 minutes. And yeah, tune in.
Remember, Fleet likes it when you come.
And ramblings wouldn't be complete without that line to finish it off, because the comedic value alone is worth 25 subscribers.
Remember,
And on that bombshell, it's time